Well, hello, folks. Welcome to Virtual Thursdays, Diary Literary Series on a Friday. Not to be confused with Virtual Fridays, Diary Literary Series before I changed it to a Thursday, but that's just me. And we're going to welcome very warmly our guest, and our guest is Jennifer Lang. And Jennifer Lang is born in San Francisco Bay Area, lives in Tel Aviv, runs Israel Writer Studio, teaches creative writing, teaches yoga, and all of those gave place to Places We Left Behind, her book, a memoir in miniature. And a little bit more about Jennifer is she is an American-French-Israeli hybrid. She writes about identity, language, and she started in the very early days of the internet, when the whole electronic publishing online, and she worked her way into print, which was actually, we'll talk about that later. That crossover was really kind of a big deal way back then, because it was kind of a all or nothing, and more black and white back then. But enough about that. Enough about the history and the sociology of publishing on the internet. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, and she's going to read a little bit from her book, and then we'll give her some questions. So take it away.
Thanks so much for having me. So I wrote this little book, Places We Left Behind, a memoir in miniature. And I'll just tell you first what it is in one sentence. It's a love story with a lot of conflict, inner and personal, marital and geopolitical, about home. So it's written in tiny chapters. This is the second chapter, Conjunctions. After making love on his mismatched sheets, Philippe and I tally how many times we've each been to Israel. I count my trips. 1971, 1975, 1981, 1983, 1984, 1985, 1988, and now in 1989, meeting both hands. He counts his on one hand. 3. You win, he says, as if we're competing. I scan his room. No posters, no mirror, no nightstand. So boyish and beautiful, especially his bed. Tell me everything, he says, adorning me with butterfly-like kisses. My tendency to share too much too soon makes me hesitate. He already knows that I'm here in Israel, despite the first Intifada or Palestinian uprising, between a job in France and graduate school in New York, to immerse in Hebrew, as well as to spend time with my only sibling and extended family, and that I miss my open-minded California-born parents in the San Francisco Bay Area. But he has no idea that I made a Jackson Pollock mess of my love life the past 2 years and promised my mother that I wouldn't fall in love and stay. No, wait, I want to know why you're here, I say, running my fingers through his silky chestnut hair. What made you immigrate? Israeli chutzpah, Haifa, the Mediterranean, beach, body surfing, falafel, spicy food. Plus, my brother plans to make Aliyah too. We each have one sibling. Mine immigrated to Jerusalem, my temporary home base, immediately after college a few years earlier. And since Aliyah comes from the verb la'alot, which means to go up, I went up in my Jewish observance. Tu comprends? Do I understand that he changed his lifestyle for a country? Absolutely not. All weekend I study this man, admiring how his pointy nose dominates an angular face, his olive skin glistens with oily patches, and his feet have white lines underneath his sandal straps. All weekend he reaches for me, amorous and solicitous of my attention. Ever since we met at a Shabbat retreat for Francophones 144 hours earlier, I haven't stopped thinking about him, convinced my secular mother will tell me it was Beshert, Yiddish for destiny, after enrolling me in a pilot French program when I was 6. Philippe fits every box on my imaginary list. French, check. Jewish, check. Smart, check. Single, check. Sexy with a guarded smile, check. A far cry from the men of late. One Catholic Parisian whom Sib refused to acknowledge. One Russian married man whom my parents refused to discuss. One once upon a time college friend who refused to commit. Burrowed in Philippe's biceps, I try to block out the conjunctions. If he wasn't Sabbath observant, and he wasn't in wrecked with his new homeland, but he is. Never, ever. When I awaken to an empty bed, I follow my nose. Odors of breakfast drift down the hall toward the galley kitchen. As batter hits butter, hissing sounds sing. Joyeux anniversaire, he says. In a fitted t-shirt and floral boxers, Philippe flips crepes single-handedly. A sight I've never seen before. No man has ever made me crepe. No Frenchman has ever made me crepe. No any nationality man has ever made me crepes. Summer heat and sexual desire swarm my every cell. He tells me to sit, serves me impeccably round, thin, buttery crepes. I watch his string bean long legs cavort in the confined space, hearing my brain croon words like stay, forever, keep him, while striving to ignore the others about distance, religion, and political climate. It's not a perfect fit, and I'm old enough to know better. Yes, I think my short chapters are good for people who have ADD of any kind. Pang! One Friday morning, we ride a bus to Hadar, a working-class neighborhood halfway down Carmel Mountain, to Shabbat shop at the Shuk. Everybody says Haifa resembles San Francisco, Philippe says. He's never been to the city by the bay, or to the United States for that matter. But I've heard many Israelis liken the two. Both share steep, windy streets and water, but all similarities end there. Out the bus window, I glimpse a neglected port, power plant, oil refinery, and random towers next to dilapidated buildings under puffs of pollution. Incomparable vis-a-vis the fog-enveloped Vermilion Golden Gate Bridge, cable cars at little engine that could pace, and Coit Tower aglow from miles away. A pang of homesickness stings like a hornet. How? On the second Sunday in September, and a super cool, difficult to forget date, 9/9/90. Aviv and I occupy separate parts of Meniftoach, a restaurant overlooking Jerusalem's valley to the north. While he listens to the rabbi read the ketubah, detailing the rights and responsibilities of the groom toward the bride, I pose for pictures on the outdoor terrace like Lady Di. We haven't seen each other since Friday in an attempt to uphold part of the customary week-long separation between a bride and a groom. My insides burn with desire. At nightfall on that Halitzon evening, we stand under the fire orange embroidered chuppah, under the stars, surrounded by 100 guests. Philippe lowers my veil, a safeguard made by Jewish males since Jacob wed a veiled Leah in error. Our bicultural, bilingual rabbi asks us if we promise to love, cherish, and protect each other, whether in good fortune or in adversity, and to seek with each other a life hallowed by the faith of Israel. I say yes without thinking about the words. As I slip a ring on Philippe's finger, I think about how he blinks his eyes like an impish little boy, how he looks like he does dozens of push-ups every day, how he makes jokes with a straight face, how we are going to spend our lives together. How are we going to spend our lives together? Hand in hand. We carry our masks everywhere, to work, to friends, to cafes. Shrill sirens ring at random times. Each one unnerves me, making me feel tiny and vulnerable, making me curse myself, question my decisions. One night at the movies, we recline in frayed burgundy seats, hand in hand, laughing at small-time con man John Cusack in The Grifters. After the intermission, only in Israel. And before the end, just our luck. The lights go on, the actors fading out as if a director yelled cut when we hear it. The unmistakable high-low, up-down, ear-shrieking sound. Ready? Philippe asks. I'm not, but have no choice. I married this place as much as I married this person. We retrieve the chunky boxes underneath our chairs. We've been through this drill enough that we no longer need help fastening the gas mask. Enough that I no longer gag, enough that I fear hearing it again. For 6 weeks, Scud missiles fall, mainly hitting the greater Tel Aviv and Haifa regions. No one around us is hurt. On the surface, we're untouched, but inside, in my kishkis, everything throbs. Last one. Cocoon. On September 13th, 1993, we bring home our 4-day-old son from the hospital. With the crib in one room and oodles of baby presents in another, our spacious apartment bursts. Philippe urges me to rest, but I can't. All I want to do is gaze down at my infant and up at the television screen. On CNN, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO leader Yasser Arafat extend arms for the first public handshake between the archenemies, with US President Bill Clinton at their side. I stretch out on our autumn-colored sofa. My baby, his eyes pinched closed and his lips puckered, sleeps, oblivious to the words of import. While Clinton speaks, I stroke the wisps of downy hair on his head, overcome by the thought that I've made this helpless, perfect being, that it's my job to protect him. When Rabin speaks, I feel tears prick the edges of my eyes, burdened by the thought that I've settled in this sliver of land where the personal and the political are tangled, inseparable, insufferable. As these world leaders stand on the White House lawn in Washington, D.C., thousands of onlookers applaud. For months, I've been reading, listening, paying attention to the news. Watching these groundbreakers, I wrap myself in a cocoon of illusion, believing that when my child grows up, he won't have to serve in the army, believing there won't even be one.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, Jennifer. That was great. I'm going to work some of these questions in. I'm going to rephrase some of these questions as well. So Robert started out with short chapters, or are they short enough so our current ADD readers will read an entire chapter? And did you do that intentionally based on the length of things on the internet and the reader's focus?
So they're absolutely short enough. Some of them aren't even words. Some of them are just actually images. I did not do that for that reason. I did that because I fell down a rabbit hole in 2018 called Flash. Flash for me, for you it might be Flash fiction. For me, it's Flash nonfiction. And I fell very deep into this rabbit hole of compressed prose. And I started writing shorter and shorter. And the shorter I got, the more I got rid of the excess, the more my prose sang.
Now,
the easier I found the heart of the story, I should say it that way.
Now, and I mean to say constricted, not in a negative way here, but the constrictions and the restrictions within Flash fictions, did you ever want to expand, or you're at a certain area and you said, oh, no, the form is this way, I need to cut it and open up a new chapter?
No, I wasn't putting those restrictions on me. I was really following my gut on a lot of this, and it just, I mean, I cut one chapter from over 3,000 words, I think 3,500 words, to 300, and it was an extraordinary practice, an extraordinary exercise. But what happened was it really popped. Like I was wowed by my own writing, and so I was like, okay, I think I'm on to something. But none of these chapters are, there isn't a number of, or that I can say to you, everything is under X number of words. It's not like that. It's just some are a little longer, some are a little shorter.
I'm fascinated that you cut 90 to 95% of the words out of a chapter. Did you have, so all those leftover words, were they other chapters or were they just gone forever?
I can't even remember. I honestly can't remember because this is years ago, but it was like, okay, well, just, cut and paste and put it into a different document. And so it's so easy to do that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt like excess.
Eric has a question. Where did you live? What shoal? He lived in the West Portal neighborhood. So that's a question. Basically, where did you live?
Where did I live when I was writing this, when I was telling this, reading those
Yes.
chapters? Okay.
Yes.
So the story starts where I'm living in Jerusalem and my new boyfriend is living in Haifa. And then I moved to Haifa and we were living on the top of the Mount Carmel. Actually, not at first. We lived near the Technion University. Remez was the neighborhood, and then we moved to the Carmel.
Okay. RJ gave you a whole lot of compliments before the question. You can read those a little later. I should just just everyone know they're glorious compliments. But the question is, with all of the writing you've done throughout your life, what do you feel writing has personally taught you the most?
I don't know if it's that it taught me the most or it's just that I found my voice. And I look back at childhood with an older, not bossy brother, but like mean brother. And he cut me down really easily. He was sarcastic. He was witty. He was smart. He was quick. I wasn't stupid. It's just I needed more time to respond. And I just never got it. And I feel like what this has given me is the time to respond. And in that response time, I really found my voice. This book is all about voice.
Yes. And I'm going to rephrase a question from Robert. So the theme of this is a Jewish themed book. Do you feel that it reaches a universal audience?
Yeah. I actually don't write for a Jewish audience. So that's the most interesting thing. So I use all kinds of different elements, non-traditional elements. I call them experimental, like end notes at the end of each chapter, and everything that is like Jewish and needs a little bit of expansion or a greater understanding to get my point. I put not into the story, but into end notes so that non-Jewish readers can understand. So I've never written for a Jewish audience. I'm writing very much about my life in Israel to show what it is to be a normal human being, which is pretty much the population of the country, to say, hey, you guys are reading what you're reading in your media over here, and it's pretty slanted and it's kind of unfair. And it's really unfair to be really judgmental and come down so hard sometimes. And I just want to say to you, I am a flawed human being trying to raise a family, be a wife, work, pay my bills, fill the fridge, make dinner, and like, here's my story.
Also, a lot of people that have read your book just came out, but a lot of people that read their book said they read it and they were emotionally drained reading about the struggles within the book. Now, was it draining for you to write it?
Yeah, not this end result that you see, this small 13,000 word book, but it started as a over 90,000 word manuscript that ended up getting to 60,000 words, that ended up in 2 books unintentionally. So I have this book, which is kind of part 1 from 1989 to 2011. And in October of 2024, October 15th of 2024, a second book comes out called Landed, a yogi's memoir in pieces and poses. It starts in 2011, where the first one ends. Unintentional. Did not start this as part 1, part 2. It was all one book. It lacked a clear narrative. It wasn't strong. It wasn't engaging. So I went at it from a different place. But when I had that 90,000 word manuscript and 65,000 word manuscript, I was digging in the past, photo albums, journals, my old letters that had been resent to me, and it was not fun. I was back in like bad moments in our marriage, times when we really weren't sure we'd be able to make it through. And I think I was questioning why one of my mentors in grad school had suggested I write about my marriage, because I was feeling like, well, this can surely tear us apart. For me to go down this path by myself again, while my spouse has no clue what I'm doing up in my office, it wasn't so easy.
Well, it's kind of amazing that, I mean, do you not recommend because you did it. So from a 90,000 to 65,000, you blew it up. And
Yeah.
At what point do you feel that other writers should just blow up their stuff and start anew or put a fresh focus on it?
I think for me, reading my work out loud is huge. It's so important. And when I was reading out loud my 60, or let's just say my 60,000 word manuscript, I was bored, bored by my writing. My sentences were flat. I didn't want to keep reading. That's when you know you have to blow it up.
Now, when you furthered your education and then you got into flash fiction, was that kind of the impetus of, hey, I can make this? Was that did that expedite the blowing up of your book, or were they just two separate things?
No, it's one long circuitous journey. I didn't take it because it was flash fiction. For me, I took flash and I made it nonfiction. Unfortunately, I don't write fiction. I think it would be so much better for my psyche and my marriage if I did, and my family. I took that class, and then around the same time, I saw a literary journal's call for submission for 300 words or less on J is for ... And I was like, oh, wow, I have the word. And that's when I went into a chapter where I found the word jury. It was the 2 days after our 20th wedding anniversary when we were debating, do we stay together or not? Does he follow our son to go back to Israel, from New York to Israel? Our son was going to the army. Should I stay in America with our girls? What did that mean for us? And I said we were debating like a jury of two. And I went back and found the word, thanks to Word and to Find. And that's the chapter where I had like 3,500 words, and I cut it to 300. And it was like, oh my God, like life-changing prose, game-changing prose. But what really happened was I took this class, Fast Flash, with a woman named Kathy Fish online.
Oh,
10
she's been here before, yeah.
10 days. And I wrote for the 10 days, I wrote all about my life in Israel. And my fellow flashers, their response to me was, I hope you're writing a memoir in Flash. And I was like, I wonder what that looks like. But this is not technically Flash, because Flash means each chapter would stand alone. Each chapter would have a beginning, middle, and end. And that's not what this is. This is, while some could stand alone, none of them really do. They're part of a story.
Yeah, and part of Flash, and Flash is so broad, and there's so many different ways that you can apply brevity, whether it's like a narrative poem or just shorter fiction or shorter memoir. And very often Flash can be used to protect subjects or to protect themes. But it sounds to me, what you've been saying is that it didn't offer protection to really sensitive subjects. So did you wrestle with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think every memoir writer does. You mean how to protect somebody?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. So if you read the book, you will see the only character I really name is my husband, Philippe. My son came to me around the time that this was all going down. He was entering adulthood and going out into the world, and he had his own very large identity already. And he said to me, can you please stop using my name? I'd been writing about him since he was 2, and he was in his mid-20s. But I realized if I didn't use my son's name, I couldn't use my daughter's names. So I got creative. I mean, in this first book, I'm not creative. I just say my son, my daughter, my daughter. In my second book that comes out in a year, I call him son with a capital S, as if it's his name, daughter with a capital D, numeric 1, daughter with a capital D, numeric 2. So I just got a little bit more creative.
And what were their responses to this book?
I don't think they'll ever read it. I sent them the parts where they appeared, telling them this was going on, and they already knew it was going on, but just saying like, here's where you appear. Are you okay? I don't even think they read that.
Okay. Readers have read your book in one sitting, been unable to put it down. Was that your intention, or is that something that like, wow, that's just what great feedback from the readers?
The latter, not my intention. I mean, you don't know how a reader's going to respond. So it's amazing to hear a response. Yeah.
Well, you were worried about when you read your own work out loud about it being boring. I mean, that's quite a swing. Unable to put it down. That's almost the polar opposite.
Yeah.
So you've got another book that's already completed. What's next for you?
I'm kind of at the beginning of what I call a 3-year turn from writer to publicist. Shameless self-promotion, like constant. I'm like my own book slut, really.
Do you have
Everywhere I can have the conversation with someone, I start it. I carry bookmarks. I like push it. So yeah, I'm not really writing right now. I can't see what's next.
so are you going to have a brand? That's the thing. Writers with memoirs, you've got a brand.
Write real.
The Lang brand.
Write it real.
All right. Well, that's awesome. And do you know any other, memoirs in flesh? Have you read other memoirs in flesh?
Yeah, again, mine is not technically flash. You can't really market
In
it
miniature, yeah, all right.
Yeah, so I actually call it, I made up my own little word. I call it a memoirella, like a novella. I mean, it's 13,000 words. It's not long, but it is a full story and it's bound like a book. It's not a chapbook. It's a traditional publisher, bound as a book. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary.
So do you feel you quite possibly have created a new form?
I don't know. A girlfriend of mine said, think of it like The Little Prince. I'm like, oh, well, that works. I don't think I created a new form, but I think what I do inside the experimental prose, I think that's new. It's in the second book as well, and a little different.
All right. Well, fantastic reading and fantastic chat. For those folks that want to have this for their very own, so that way Jennifer doesn't have to self-promote that much. You can just buy the book and it'll be done. She'll be done with her journey. But Places We Left Behind, a memoir in miniature, that's what it looks like. You can find it at all your favorite places. And like bookshop.org is a great one. It supports the independent bookstore if you're not buying it from the independent bookstore directly. And thank you so much.
And if you can leave a review, that would be amazing.
Yeah, the magic number on Amazon, you know the magic number for
50.
reviews?
50.
Yeah, 50 you get paired up with other folks like
So
folks.
I'm at like 35. So really, 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 please leave a review.
All right. Thank you again. And for those folks that are watching this on this live stream, please, the link for the Zoom is right there if you want to be on the open mic. And if you ask questions on the live stream, we didn't get a chance to see you. You got to be on the Zoom to do the questions. But I appreciate you watching, and please come back next Thursday when we stay true to our name for Virtual Thursdays. Jennifer Lang, thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks so much, you guys.